Hello everyone, Sabrina here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be creating two Slimline interactive advent calendar cards using some new products from the latest Scrappy Tales Countdown to Christmas release. I'm going to be using the mini pop-up box die set, the advent calendar add-on die, the nativity 4x6 stamp set along with the coordinating dies, and for my second calendar I'm going to be using the Christmas icons 4x6 stamp and coordinating dies. I'm also going to pull in the roof bundle die set to create some festive roofs for the top of my calendars. I'm going to start by die cutting some little boxes and gift card holders. So my first card is going to use the gift card holders that are in the mini pop-up box die set, and my second card is going to use the mini boxes. You can see here that I'm double cutting all of my boxes and gift card holders because this calendar has 24 doors. I didn't want to cut 24 individual boxes, so you can actually double cut these with your Gemini if you use lightweight cardstock, and I used 80-pound white Nina for those boxes. Very quick there, I cut the numbers to go on the outside of my doors for my first card. I cut them all from gold mirror cardstock. I also went ahead and die cut some card bases for my calendar. These are panels from the Slimline pop-up birdhouse. I cut 3 panels from lightweight navy blue shimmer cardstock and 2 from heavyweight white. I'm going to glue the blue on top of the white, and on one of the panels I'm going to add 2 blue. So one on the front of the panel and one on the back. The other one I just added the navy blue to the front. So this is just going to make it more sturdy, since this is going to be a card that will be handled a lot since it is interactive. I'm going to take the solid die from the Advent Calendar add-on and die cut it from the panel that has white showing on the back. And that is going to cut all 24 doors for my calendar. So this add-on die counts down to Christmas Eve. And you can see that it cuts 3 sides of the door, and then the left side is a score line so that your recipient can open and close each door. So here I'm going to go ahead and open them all. Then I'm going to take my other panel that has the 2 blue sides and run that same die through my die cut machine once. That is going to leave an impression. It's not going to cut all the way through because there's quite a few layers there. And I want that to know where I'm going to glue my gift card holders, and you'll see what I'm talking about once we get there. So I have all of my numbers here. I die cut, the numbers 1 through 24, twice from white cardstock, and then once from gold cardstock. So behind each of my numbers, I'm adding 2 layers of heavyweight white cardstock to help these numbers pop out against the card panel. Now, this would have been much faster if I had not done this. This was very time consuming, but I do think it was worth it. If you're patient, you may also want to do this, but I will say that it probably added about an hour to the card making process, since some of these numbers had to be cut out multiple times, or all of them, but the 2 and the 1s I had to cut quite a few of, because in the die set you get the numbers 0 through 9. Obviously those numbers will be repeated. So I did probably spend about an hour die cutting and gluing every single number, but it does look really nice. I'm also going to do that for the doorknobs. So again, I went with the star-shaped doorknobs included in the set. I cut them twice from white cardstock and once from gold, and I'm going to glue them to the right of each number. So I kept it simple because I did take that extra time to die cut and glue. So this is really the only thing that's going to decorate the front of my calendar. So here you can see I'm gluing down all the numbers onto the doors. I'm just going to show you me gluing a couple of them, and then I finished the rest off camera. I'll also show you how I glued the little doorknobs. These are pretty small, but you get 6 doorknobs to 1 die, so you don't have to sit there and cut 24 individual doorknobs. You'd only have to cut it out 4 times, so these were a lot quicker. And then there's also some circles or hearts if you want to use those shapes instead of the stars. But I'm going to be creating a nativity themed calendar, so I thought the stars would look nice. And so this die is included in the recent Countdown to Christmas collection by Scrappy Tales, and I designed this die set because I thought it would be perfect to coordinate with the Slimline pop-up birdhouse, and because it's tall, the doors are actually a pretty good size. In fact, you can even add little boxes behind the doors, so I'll show you how I did that in card 2, but this one is a little bit easier. I think it works well for those of you who want to create an interactive card that can be mailed. Here I have a roof from the Slimline birdhouse that I cut from gold cardstock, and then on top I'm layering this roof that's included in the Christmas roof bundle die set. It just cuts out little circles so it looks like there's lights embedded inside the roof. I thought that would be very cute to add to the top of my calendar. And to tie in the white on the top of the card, I'm also going to add some white to the bottom. So this little die is included in the birdhouse. It's meant to be a bird perch, but I'm going to kind of just use it as a decorative piece. And right now my card is a little bit taller than 9 inches, so I want to trim it down so that it will fit inside an envelope. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm using my trimmer to make sure I get a straight line. I'm going to end up cutting the ends so that it is flush against the base. Here is that second panel where I basically just embossed it. I did not die cut through it completely. And I did that so that I can see where to glue my little gift card holders. So these are included in the mini pop-up box die set. This is great if you want to add a cute little message behind each door of the calendar. So that's what I plan on doing here. And again, I only die cut these 12 times because I use lightweight cardstock. I know you can do that with your Gemini, and I'm pretty sure you can also do it with the Spellbinders machines to save time. So I die cut them all from white, and I'm just assembling them. They're literally a gift card holder, so there's a tab on the side and on the bottom. You just tuck them all behind, glue them together, and then you glue the tabs to the panel. You don't want to glue the inside part of the gift card because then you're going to glue it shut and you won't be able to add your little message. So I did that for all 24 squares, and now I'm going to stamp out my nativity icons. So this is the nativity icon 4x6 stamp set. You actually get 25 icons in this stamp. I added 25 because it just looked better on the stamp set. So if there's not one you care for, you have one extra to choose from. To make this quick and easy, I'm going to just emboss all of them at once. So I took the entire stamp set, I taped it to the door of my Misty, and I'm inking up the entire stamp with my Versamark ink. My leftover blue shimmer cardstock wasn't big enough for the last 4 stamps, so I'm kind of maneuvering it to get those last couple images inked up and stamped. So this is the same paper I used for my card base. I'm going to grab some Wow Gold embossing powder. This is the closest embossing powder that I have in my stash that matches the gold mirror cardstock I have. So I'm just going to pour that over and heat set everything. There are coordinating dies, so I went ahead and just die cut all of them out at once. There's also icon dies included in the advent calendar add-on, so you don't have to buy the stamps, but the stamps are obviously great because all you have to do is ink them up and die cut them, or you can emboss them like I did here. I did die cut some extra white or heavyweight white die cuts to go behind my gold embossed die cuts, so I am adding 2 heavyweight white die cuts behind my blue ones. So here you can see all of my gift card holders are attached, and because I partially die cut that panel, everything is going to line up perfectly. I have these connector pieces that are also included in the mini pop-up box die set. Now you don't have to use this connector. You can use the connector that's included in the Slimline birdhouse, but I like this because it hides what's inside the calendar. It's also narrower, it's 3/4 inches wide, so the calendar isn't going to be quite as bulky. That being said, it's not going to fold flat because there's not a score line in the center. So if you want this card to be mailed, use the connector that's included in the Slimline pop-up birdhouse. I wanted to include this because, again, it looks cleaner and it also works better for the boxes that you can put inside the calendar. So you might have saw there that I did trim down the tabs of these connector pieces. You don't have to do that, but I just want to make sure that I'm not going to see them through the cutouts of the doors. I don't think you would have, but I just wanted to make sure. It also makes it a little bit easier to line up here. And this connector is easier to figure out than the connector that's included in the birdhouse because there's not a score line in the center. You literally just fold the two tabs in and glue them to each panel to connect them. So here I have my icons and I'm just going to glue them on top of the gift card holders. And because they're on 2 layers of heavyweight white, they're going to pop up really nicely. And there's no particular order. I did decide to put baby Jesus at the top and a Bible as the last day of the month or countdown. And here I'm going to write a message for every day leading up to Christmas. So I think this one says like love yourself. The other one says good luck today, I love you. Just encouraging sentiments. Because I decided to go with that connector piece included in the mini box die set, this is going to be a card that I'm going to hand deliver. But as I mentioned, if you want to mail this card, all you have to do is use the connector that's included in the Slimline birdhouse. I went ahead and closed off the calendar. Now, if you want to add your messages, I would do that before closing it, but you can obviously still add them in. And you can see I opened a couple of the doors and everything lines up really nice. It's such a cute interactive card. Not only is it a pop-up, but it's also an actual advent calendar. So it's something that can be displayed as kind of like a home decor piece in someone's home. So I definitely feel like the time spent on these cards are worth it because they are going to open it every single day like a true advent calendar. I'm going to decorate the back of my card by gold heat embossing a couple sentiments on this navy blue die cut. This is included in the Slimline Shadow Box die set. I thought it would be perfect to write a message on. So I went with Oh Holy Night at the top and Good Tidings at the bottom. I'm going to add another roof to the back of my card just to finish it off. So I cut the roof included in the birdhouse from gold mirror, and then the top layer I cut from white cardstock. And that's just going to finish off the calendar really nicely. And it also is a nice way to add a personalized message. So this card is great for those that want to mail out these cards. The second card is going to have boxes inside so that you can put actual physical items inside like a traditional calendar. So it's not really one that you would send through the mail, although you can because it is only 3/4 inches wide. You would just have to mail it in a bubble mailer. So here's my first card completely finished. I love those little nativity icons. I know that a lot of advent calendars are gifted to children, so I think it's a great way to teach them the nativity story. They're also quite elegant, so I think they would work well for adults too, especially if you go with heat embossing. All right, so my second card is a little bit fun. I went with pattern paper as the base of my panel. And again, I added white behind my pattern paper just to make it more sturdy. From one of them, I'm going to die cut the solid die from the advent calendar add-on. I went through my die cut machine twice to make sure that all those doors cut through, since it is 2 layers of cardstock here. And then again, I'm going to open up each individual door. Now, what I should have done is what I did for the first card, and I should have ran through that die on my second panel to leave an impression so that I knew where to glue my boxes. I was a bit impatient here and I figured I can line them up by myself. Honestly, I made my life a little bit hard because it would have been faster for me had I embossed it or left an impression there for me. But it's fine, you definitely can still line them up and I'll show you guys how to do that. But no, it'll be much easier if you did what I did for the first card. So here I have the Christmas icon 4x6 stamp set. Again, you get 25 images along with a couple sentiments, and you get numbers. So if you don't want to cut individual numbers like I did for the first card, you can directly stamp them on the doors themselves, and that'll be much quicker. So that's why I included those in that stamp. So you can see I went ahead and stamped out every single image from the stamp set, once from Dark Red ink by Hero Arts and once from Versamark ink, so that I can heat emboss these images. I didn't want all of them to be red. I also wanted some to be green and some to be gold. So I'm going to go in now, re-ink these with some dark green Memento ink. I think this is Cottage Ivy. Again, I will stamp those out, and because I'm using dye inks, they're not going to stay wet long enough for my embossing powder to stick. So that is why I go over the images once again with my Versamark ink. If you have a Misty, you can ensure that everything lines up with the second impression. If you want to avoid stamping twice, you can just stamp out once with Versamark ink and use your colored embossing powder. I wanted to make sure that in case I didn't stamp out perfectly with my Versamark, that you would still see green behind the image, but I think I stamped it out just fine with just the Versamark. And here you can see for my gold, I just did that. I just stamped it out once with Versamark. I didn't clean off my stamp very well, so there's a little bit of green showing, but that's completely fine. I'm gonna just pour my gold powder over those, and you won't even tell that there's some green underneath. Now, you can just use your colored inks. You do not have to emboss, and if you don't have red or green embossing powder like I do, you can ink up with a pigment ink, whatever color you want to use, and pour over embossing, clear embossing powder, and you'll get the same result. Or if you don't have pigment ink, you can stamp with colored dye ink. You're just going to want to make sure that you stamp it out again with Versamark like I did, so that it is sticky enough for your embossing powder. All right, so I have a black roof for this calendar. I'm also going to add another decorative roof from the roof bundle die set. This one is a string of lights I cut from gold mirror cardstock. I'm also going to add that strip to the bottom to finish it off. Again, I'll have to pull in my trimmer to make sure that it is not too long. Even though I'm not going to mail this card, I didn't really have to do that. But I do want it to be a true slimline card, so I'm just going to trim it down here. Again, I'll trim off the sides. And then I'm going to take all of my icons. Again, I have 25 green, red, and gold, so I don't need every single image. So I decided to use the extras as backers to pop up my images. Now, some of you might be cringing and might be thinking, don't do that, keep those. I know me, and I know I probably won't end up using them, especially the ones that I don't want the specific color for. So I figured I'm still using them. The embossing powder is going to add even more dimensions since it's partially raised, but you definitely don't have to do this. You can just die cut it again from heavyweight white cardstock, but these were already stamped and embossed on heavyweight white, so I figured why not just use them as backers. So the top layer is the color that I want. So for the bow, I went with red, the mitten dark green, the gold or the present gold. That way I can use up every image that I die cut. And here's where I decide I am going to break the pattern. So instead of doing red, green, gold, I'm just going to offset the colors so that everything is kind of well distributed. I changed my mind here a couple times and moved things around. That cardinal wasn't big enough to hide that mistake, so I'm going to take an ornament instead that's much larger and glue it over that torn paper. And it only tore through the pattern paper because there's white underneath. It didn't tear through the entire door. So I'm not going to show you me gluing all of these. I think I just show you about halfway here. And so for this calendar, I didn't add any numbers. I just added the icons, and they're the perfect size. I thought they were just so darling on the outside of the doors. I'm going to add my connector pieces. These ones I did not trim down, and I kind of wish that I did, or that I cut these from white cardstock, because you're going to see the black a little bit through the doors. And because my boxes are white, it was kind of noticeable. So I would either, one, make these connector pieces white, or two, make my boxes black to match, or do what I did for the first card and trim down the tabs a bit. It wasn't super noticeable, so it's not a huge deal to me, but I thought I would mention that. Here are my little boxes that I die cut at the beginning of this video. All I do here is reinforce the score lines that the die creates. Now it's going to be a bit difficult for me to explain how I glue this together, so I slowed down the video so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Basically, there's that long piece in the center, more towards the right, and then there's 2 or 4 tabs sticking up, 2 to the left of that long piece and 2 to the right. Those are the only tabs you add glue to. So I like to go through each one at a time when it comes to liquid glue, just to make sure that everything is nice and adhered. And I just push those tabs upwards and glue them to that longer piece. I'm going to do it on the right side. Once those are nice and adhered, I'll move over to the left side. Again, push the fold upwards and connect the tabs to that longer piece. Then I fold in the 2 remaining tabs. I don't add any glue to those, and then you can see the lid of the box is pointing upwards. For my advent calendar, I just cut the lid right off, and I also cut those inner tabs that don't have any glue, because that is ultimately where I'm going to add my candy. But you can leave them as cubes and close them off if you want, and in a future video I'll show you other ways you can use these boxes to create more festive decor pieces. But for the calendar, I like to cut the lids off. You can leave them on if you want, and your recipient can open the lids. It's totally up to you. Because I have doors on my calendar, I felt like that wasn't necessary, but it's up to you. Like I said, it's your calendar. So I'm going to show you one more cube here. Again, I add just glue to those 2 pieces to the left and right of that longer center piece. I constantly reinforce my score lines just to make sure everything is going to fold upright easy for me. Now, I am using liquid glue here because I thought that would be faster, since I had 24 of these boxes to create. I ended up switching to tape. I don't know if that really saved me any time, but I think it was a better adhesion. And you're going to want to make sure that these are nicely glued, because you're going to put candy or little sprinkles inside. So you want these to be pretty sturdy. If you're having trouble with this, just rewind, watch it a couple times. It really is pretty easy to put these together, and you really only have to make one. Then you got to make 23 more, so you're going to definitely catch on pretty quickly on how these are made. So here I'm doing the left side. I push the tabs upward, glue them to the center piece until all I'm left with is the lid, which for now I'm going to leave them on. I wasn't sure if I wanted them on or not, but eventually I'm going to cut them off. So here are all 24 boxes. They are 3/4 inches wide, so they're the same width as the connector piece, so everything is nice and snug. Because those connectors are longer, it's going to cover the majority of the boxes being shown inside, so everything looks nice and clean. I decided to only add one connector to the left side just so that I can attach my boxes. Again, if you did what I did on the first card, you would not have to worry about lining these up. I did myself a disservice trying to line them up myself. Really, it was only difficult to do the first couple, and then once I got through the first 3 rows, I kind of knew where to glue them, and I just eyeballed it. They're pretty much going to stack right on top of each other, right next to each other. You can see here I decided to cut the lids off. You can also cut the doors off instead, but I wanted to add those cute icons to the doors, so I decided to cut the lids off. So here I decided to partially add my second connector piece. I'm going to attach it to the front panel, but I'm going to leave the tab that would attach the second panel. I'm not going to remove the backing tape. I just want this attached so that it'll be easier for me to line up these boxes. And the way that I adhere the boxes, the difficult way, may I add, is I add glue to the back of my boxes first thing. I align it to the front panel, add my glue, and then I bring my back panel to the front and I stick the back to the box. And that lined it up fairly well. Sometimes I might have to wiggle it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, but this was fairly easy to do, and for the most part it lined up pretty well. So here's that third box. I left the lid on for some reason on this one, but you can see when I move on to the third row, I have the lids cut off here. And here you can see I can now kind of gauge where the rest of my boxes are going to go. I didn't really have to line them up to the front panel. But I am constantly swinging my front panel to my back one to make sure that everything is lining up nicely. And yeah, I'm just going to do that all the way down. So these cards are definitely a labor of love, but they're also a gift, I feel. I plan on making a bunch of these for Thanksgiving for like the in-law side of my family, and adding a Hershey Kiss inside each of the boxes because you can fit a single Hershey Kiss. You might be looking at these boxes and think, there's no way I can fit anything inside, but I'm going to show you what you can fit, and there's quite a few things you can put inside. You would be pleasantly surprised, I feel. So now that all 24 boxes are inside my calendar, I'm going to go ahead and trim off the tab just a bit so you don't see anything through the windows. You don't have to do this if you would have cut your connector pieces from the white or the same color you use to cut your boxes. So here I'm opening the doors and putting my finger in each one so you can see that there is indeed a little box behind each door. I'm going to show you the different things you can put inside these boxes. I have a Hershey Kiss. You can fit one kiss inside and you can still successfully close the door shut. I have a $1 bill here. You have to fold it up a couple times, but it will fit. Here I have a random die that's small enough to fit inside. I also added a little message inside that one. So I think these calendars would be perfect for fellow card makers. Here I have a random bag of sequins that will fit inside. And you would be surprised how many different embellishments you can put inside this calendar. So it really is perfect for a crafter. You can put little, like maybe needles if you have a sewing friend. There I just added a simple message, so you can do the same thing we did for card 1, add a message inside each box. These are foam dots, again great for a card maker. You can fit quite a few in there. Here are some mini M&Ms. I'm sure you guys can get creative when it comes to candy. Just pretty much any small candy will fit in there. These are sticky back gems. And then I thought what would be super darling is if you just filled this calendar with embellishments. So these are some little candy confetti clay pieces by Trinity Stamps, and you can really fill these up. I used about a quarter of the container for each little box. So you could basically in 4 doors fit an entire container of sequins. I also can fit my wedding ring, 2 wedding rings inside there. You can do a pair of stud earrings. I think the possibilities are pretty endless. And when I grew up, I always pretty much got chocolate and candy every day, but every once in a while, like maybe once a week or so, my mom would put a $5 bill or a small bottle of nail polish. Sometimes she would even put like a necklace pendant. So I think there are quite a few surprises you can put inside this calendar. All right, so I'm going to decorate the back, and I used a couple of the sentiments from the Christmas Icon stamp set. I went with Merry Christmas and No Peeking because when I was young, I would always look sometimes a day before to see what I would get tomorrow. There's also a little sentiment that says do not open until Christmas Eve. I know that several countries celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve as opposed to Christmas Day. That's why traditional German calendars count down to Christmas Eve. I know some American ones count down to Christmas Day. But either way, I thought that sentiment was really cute. I added another black and gold roof to the back along with that same die cut that's perfect to write a custom message. I'm also going to add a chimney to my calendar. Why not? So this chimney is from the Neighborhood House add-on that came in the March release. I cut it from the same plaid pattern paper, and then the top of it I cut from black paper. Off camera, I also added a chimney to my nativity calendar. So here are 2 variations of the advent calendar add-on. I love how these turned out, and they were really fun to create. They're definitely a card that's going to be displayed for the entire season and possibly opened every single day. I just love how interactive it is. I hope you all enjoyed my video tutorial today. I'm going to have some more coming next week. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and if you haven't yet already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you're notified when I post my next video. All right, guys, bye!